U.S. fails to make big dent in UN vote calling for end to embargo. But what really makes this a fun story is Mike Waltz being told by the Cuban ambassador to go home and get his shine box. This is what it's come to, folks.
Many of you, frankly, some as recently as this morning, tell us privately that since the regime cares so much about this vote, that you just want to appease it. You just want to kind of go with the flow and go with the crowd. That's what you tell us privately. But, colleagues, let me suggest today that you do something different this year. The United States and the Trump administration...
To be clear, with COVID year being an exception, for 33 years, the UN has overwhelmingly been voting to lift the embargoes on Cuba. This is what he's talking about.
Wants to set the record straight when it comes to this resolution and to correct the fake news, the misinformation, and this false reality the regime seeks to create year after year with this vote. The facts are this is an illegitimate and brutal regime that seeks to cast itself as the victim of aggression while plainly describing itself as, quote, the enemy of the United States. It's located just 90 miles off our shore. It conspires and it collaborates with enemies and adversaries of the United States against our interests. The facts are that this regime supports terrorist organizations around the globe. It is allowing mercenaries to fight in the war in Ukraine. It's propping up the Venezuelan regime, and it aids cartels. The facts are that these cartels that it props up are trafficking people, drugs, and weapons, and is aiding and abetting instability in our hemisphere. They undermine democracies in our hemisphere.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but there's a point of order from Cuba.
Sure. Madam President,
yes. Yes, we have to give the floor to the point of order and the representative of Cuba.
The permanent representative of the United States not only lies by substantially deviating from the topic, but also speaks in a rude and arrogant manner against your presidency, against the dignity of this assembly and the member states. He does so with uncivilized, crude, and coarse behavior that is not acceptable in this distinguished and democratic forum. Mr. Walsh, this is the United Nations General Assembly. This is not a signal chat, nor is it the House of Representatives.
Home and get your fucking shine box.
Nicely done, sir. Oh, whoops, sorry about that.
See, they know signal chat. They know signal chat. People say, you know, the Cubans are stuck in the past. Now he knows what signal chat is.
He knows what it is. They use it from their 57 Chevys, which honestly look awesome. I swear to God, during that brief period where Obama made it easier to travel there, I said, you better do it now. You better do it now. It's not going to last. And sure enough. So somebody tweeted out here in response to Waltz's batshit speech. While U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, is accusing Cuba of being an illegitimate and failed state from his comfortable seat in New York, the Cuban authorities have effectively evacuated 650,000 people in the eastern provinces to prepare and protect them from Hurricane Melissa. Well, I mean, that's nothing we wouldn't do 6 times before breakfast. Oh, FEMA didn't answer thousands of calls from flood survivors, documents show. 2 days after deadly Texas floods, the agency struggled to answer calls from survivors because of call center contracts that weren't extended, of course, by Secretary Ducklips, that old dog killer herself, Kristi Noem, didn't extend those contracts, Kristi Noem. So who's the failed state exactly? Who's the failed state? These people are evacuating over 500,000 people, and they can't even answer the phone calls of people who have suffered from a flood. Or how about that? Trump just denied North Carolina's request for FEMA relief from Hurricane Helene, calling it unwarranted. This is after he held a whole press conference using those people as props against the Biden administration. And, he got their votes. He doesn't need them anymore. Which is the failed state? Which one is the failed state? Without being sanctioned up the wazoo by the world's greatest economic and military power, we're treating people this way. The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly called for an end to a U.S. economic embargo on Cuba, despite lobbying by Washington that included sharing an accusation that up to 5,000 Cubans are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. It adopted a resolution with 165 votes in favor, 7 against, and 12 abstentions. The U.S. convinced Argentina, that's real hard with the 40 billion, right? Hungary, North Macedonia, powerhouse of Europe, North Macedonia, Paraguay, and Ukraine to join it, and Israel in voting against the resolution. Alexander is rolling over in his grave. Last year, the General Assembly adopted the resolution with 187 countries voting in favor. The United States and Israel were the only countries that voted against it, while Moldova abstained. I guess that's what they call the coalition of the willing right there. Cuba has rejected as unfounded the U.S. claims and released information on legal proceedings against Cubans for mercenary activity in Ukraine. We got Americans who go over there to fight. We don't even we don't prosecute those people, or IDF soldiers for that matter, who are American, who commit war crimes. Communist-run Cuba has openly sided with its ally Russia in the conflict, while also calling for peace talks. The UN vote carries political weight, but only the U.S. Congress can lift the Cold War-era embargo. The 193-member UN General Assembly has adopted the resolution annually for more than 3 decades, except for 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Quote, "The blockade is a policy of collective punishment," Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez told the Assembly before the vote. "It flagrantly, massively, and systematically violates the human rights of Cubans. It makes no distinction between social sectors or economic actors." Unquote. Cuban Vice Foreign Minister Carlos Fernandez de Ocasio told Reuters in an interview in Havana following the vote that the debate had proven that relatively few countries were susceptible to mounting U.S. pressure against Cuba. The United States consistently has voted against the UN resolutions since 1992, but abstained for the first time in 2016 under former President Barack Obama, as Washington and Havana forged a closer relationship. Washington then returned to opposing the resolution under President Donald Trump's first administration. Trump also rolled back nearly all measures taken by Obama to ease the embargo and improve ties between the United States and its old Cold War foe. The United States continued to vote no under Trump's successor, President Joe Biden's administration. You want the rainbow fascism, or you want the traditional classic flavor? Those are your choices, folks. That's what's on offer. So this is pretty funny, man. And I just wanted to take a look at some of these claims, which are particularly absurd at this moment, particularly coming from this administration. The first victims, this is the U.S. mission to the UN, the first victims of the illegitimate communist regime of Cuba are the Cuban people. It's time for the civilized world, oh, is that what we're calling it now, to stop looking away and demand that Cuba provide its own citizens with food, medicine, and electricity, end its use of forced labor, and free its 700 political prisoners. Communism destroys lives and countries. Enough is enough. Well, if communism is doing that to Cuba, what's our excuse exactly? So let's take a look at some of these claims and their counterpart on our own fair shores. As far as starving the people goes, the USDA literally deleted its contingency plan for funding SNAP so that it wouldn't have to keep feeding people when SNAP expires. We are literally about to intentionally starve people. Literally. How about political prisoners? We found that more than 170 U.S. citizens have been held by immigration agents. They've been kicked, dragged, and detained for days. And, a lot of people would argue that a lot of people in our prisons, particularly for marijuana crimes, are political prisoners. There was, I can't remember who worked for Nixon who admitted that the purpose of the war on drugs was to lock up black people. And from the Children's Defense Fund, as far as providing for people goes, we have 11 million children in poverty. 1 in 6 children under 5 lives in poverty. The idea that we would be accusing anybody of starving their people, not providing for their people, is absolutely absurd. Medicine? You're going to talk about providing medicine? Cuba not only has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, they send doctors around the world to provide free healthcare for impoverished nations. What are we doing? Health insurance premium spikes imminent as tax credit enhancements set to expire. You're going to tell Cuba to provide medicine to its people. Really, really. As far as forced labor goes, we have that right here. We have that right here. Prisoners in the U.S. are part of a hidden workforce linked to hundreds of popular food brands. If you want to look this up, Robin McDowell, she specializes in this subject. She has done a great series of articles in the AP exposing what is, by any measure, modern-day slavery. And very often these people, like at Angola, are literally working on the old plantations, where in some cases, literally their forebears worked as slaves. The 13th Amendment, I have the book right behind me here, The New Jim Crow, gets into how they used the 13th Amendment to essentially keep slavery going. So the idea that we're going to be accusing Cuba of that is pretty rich. So here's Max Blumenthal. The U.S., Ukraine, Israel, and Javier Milei versus the world on strangling Cuba. Yes. This is going underground. For the 33rd year, the UN General Assembly overwhelmingly voted to condemn and end the U.S. barbaric economic blockade against Cuba, which has impoverished the island nation for decades. Cuba's foreign minister has stated the blockade has cost $1.6 trillion in losses of international trade and tourism since the blockade began. 165 nations voted to condemn the blockade. Only the U.S. and a handful of vassal states voted against the UN resolution. The U.S. stands isolated on the global stage once again, as we usually are. And Justine Haig, with support from 165 countries, the UN has voted to condemn the U.S. blockade of Cuba for the 33rd time. Tell me, who's the rogue state here? Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We're it. We are the rogue state. And as the old saying goes, pride goeth before a fall. When you look at this, it's always hard to imagine the historical moment you're in being temporary. It's always particularly difficult to imagine powers that seem absolutely unassailable falling. Look at this. A nation that has the leadership position that we do, that has clearly lost the consent of the led, it's only a matter of time before a nation like that falls. The entire world is just waiting for an opportunity to take us down. They're just waiting for the right moment of weakness to unite and take down the United States. The world hates us, and yes, it's very hard if you've been raised in this propaganda bubble to really understand that we are the bad guys at this moment in history. We are the bad guys. We are part of a coalition of evil nations like the UAE, like Malay. I'm not talking about the people in the nations, but I'm talking about the leadership. We are the greatest obstacle to peace and cooperation in the world today. Xi, at the conference they're at right now, just gave a speech talking about a future world built more around cooperation and mutual support between countries. What are we doing? We're doing it. We're embargoing this fucking country that is no threat to us since 1960 because they have a different political and economic system. If this system is so bad and so frail and so weak, why do you have to embargo the country? Won't it just collapse under its own weight? The fact that, I said this about Venezuela too, the fact that these countries are surviving while we're collapsing without having all these embargoes, while having every advantage possible that we could have, including the exorbitant privilege of having the dollar, the world's reserve currency, which we could just print whenever we need more money. No other country can do that. And we're still falling apart. We're still collapsing. Our people don't have health care. Our people don't have food. Our children are living in poverty. 1 in 6 children are living in poverty. So which is the successful system? How weak is this system that things are that bad in this country, while these countries have been able to weather this kind of aggression, in Cuba's case, for what, 60 years, 70 years?
Well, yeah, we won't leave them the fuck alone. I mean, that's the thing. Like, so many of these countries, all they want to do is live. All they want to do is do their thing. And we will not let them. And yet, by so many metrics, they are more successful than we are. By so many metrics. I mean, when it comes to healthcare and healthcare outcomes, yeah, Cuba exports doctors around the world. They don't send soldiers around the world to kill people. They send doctors
give
around
them
the world.
medicine, balls.
Yeah. They sent aid after Katrina. They sent aid to New Orleans, to a country that hates them, to a country that's done nothing but sabotage them. You know, they don't hold it against the American people the way the American people hold so much against so many people around the world. Yeah. So, no, it's, of course, embarrassing. And the coalition is a very small coalition. As you could say, the United Nations has been overwhelming in its support for lifting the embargo for decades. Cuba developed a COVID vaccine that's actually not an mRNA vaccine. They actually developed the old-fashioned kind of vaccine, you know, the ones that stop you from getting the thing that you vaccinate against, right? They did that. And they didn't need a warp speed, right? They did that. So, yeah, no, look, I mean, we have no legitimacy whatsoever. It's comical at this point. I mean, it's laughable at this point to see people who do live in that bubble of propaganda. You know, and that's partly because we do this for a living, so we pay closer attention than, you know, almost anyone. But yeah, I mean, it's transparently obvious. It's transparently, and the hostility from this administration in terms of actually now trying for a second time in 2 terms to do a regime change operation in Venezuela. And I, you know, from the looks of it now, that's going to expand at least into Colombia, you know, if not further. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, it's pretty obvious, you know, who the agitators are. It's not a mystery at all.
Please clap.